I don't really have any videos on like just crabbing because my videos are kind of about everything. I was like, man, I always have all these other creators and stuff hit me up and want to come out and go crabbing to see how it's done and what I do. And I haven't even done a video on that myself because like my entire life is so crazy that it kind of gets mixed in with everything else. I thought today I'd give people kind of a rundown of like, it's kind of how it works, sort of how the market works for crabs here. Also how we catch them on a commercial scale. Plus just sort of like a little bit of like a life update sort of, you know, kind of where things are going in my business because people seem to be curious. Now, this coming weekend is the last weekend before kids go back to school, which means the market for crabs is about to start going down in general. We have a lot of crabs we need to catch for this weekend because it's usually like the last big weekend we have to make some money, and there's a few crabs around. I also have a lot of people that want them this weekend that I know of, like bushels and whatever else. So we are trying to rapidly catch as many crabs as we possibly can this week because it's also been very windy. And I'm hoping that it's not too much trouble today. We're gonna find out. This has been about the windiest summer I've ever experienced here in the Bay in my 10 years of crabbing. Hopefully we can pull it off. I even have my high school principal stopped by the crab stand and wanted a bushel of crabs this week. I'm gonna try to disappoint him twice in my life. Hopefully we can make that happen. I also have a couple relatives that want them and just a bunch of locals. It's all good. But I'll give you a little intro to the crew here since we're not quite in like work mode yet. So we have 3 guys. I work with me in 3 positions, a shaker, a caller, and a stacker. And right now we have Greg as our stacker. And the funny thing is, Greg is actually like going to school for actual rocket science. We always joke and say like, oh, that's not rocket science. Well, if it was rocket science, Greg could actually do it. Sometimes crabbing things don't click as well as rocket science does to Greg. It's a very unique position that I have not been in my employing career. And then we have AJ. His right arm, you'll notice, is a little longer than his left, and that's from reaching around and patting himself on the back all day. But it keeps him going. And we have Nate as well. Nate calls the crabs, which means he sorts the crabs. Nate and Greg, actually, I'm losing next week back to school, which is like so ridiculous. I kept telling him like, just drop out, dude, be a crabber. Just kidding. Greg's going back to college. Nate has 1 more year of high school. That's what it takes to get it done, in theory.
I know it's 17 and 18. Like I said, we go for one.
If you go to school for rocket science, you ain't no crabber. Actually, not on this boat. Kind of hard. Also, the guy that's helping me film, one of my best friends, Riley, he's been giving me a hand with some of this kind of stuff, helping me keep things organized and helping film a little bit, so I'm very grateful for him. You guys have seen him in a lot of videos. Hopefully you see him in some more, but he is going to be behind the camera a little bit. But he's a nerd as well. He's also basically going to school for rocket science. Not actual rocket science like Greg, but they're taking all the same classes at the same school, so nerds. And then back there, higher education. This is like the weirdest August day ever because it was like 54 degrees this morning. Super bizarre. We're all in sweatshirts, even though it's August. But I'll take it. I like it. It's nice. It's a relief from this ridiculous heat that we've been having all summer. It's been hot. This is week number 3 with no days off. We've been going 7 days a week so far. It's starting to wear on me a little bit. Kind of like how everything on the boat, the grind of the routine starts to wear away at it, and eventually you have to do a little bit of service to it. Do not let your mind become a wear item. That's why this week's video is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy company that connects you with thousands and thousands of licensed therapists all over the country from wherever you are. You could literally be in a therapy session in your car, in your crab truck, or in your boat on your way in. It's very, very important to be able to take care of your, not only your body, but also your mind, especially when you're trying to do a lot. The way my business has gone has been great, but it has really taken its toll on my mental health. Over 4 million people have already switched to using BetterHelp to start to take control of their mental health. And you can't always control what is happening to you, but the thing that you can control is how you react to it and how you move forward from it. Therapy is an awesome way to do that, and BetterHelp is an awesome tool to also help you help yourself. BetterHelp has over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. All you have to do is go online and fill out a quick questionnaire to get started for them to match you with a therapist that is also switch therapists at any time. So go to betterhelp.com/LukeMcFadden to get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp and see how they can start helping you help yourself. So this is what we're after here. Chesapeake Bay Blue Gold. That's a really nice, pretty crab too. So this is Chesapeake Bay Blue Crab. This is what the bay in Maryland is known for. It's pretty much Maryland's identity. Calanectus savidus, I guess is the Latin name for it. So that's what we're after. I know that one looks dead. He's not dead, but what we do on my boat is ice the crabs. So the crabs get shook right out of the pot, right into a cold ice slurry, and that basically helps us call them a lot faster. It also helps the crabs live a lot better, because the thing that kills crabs is when they pinch each other, they're biting each other and ripping each other apart, tearing each other up. So this kind of freezes them up and it allows us to cull them really fast. It also keeps them from getting wadded up, because when it's hot, they all pinch each other in the box, and you pick up one crab and you got every crab in the box attached to it, tearing them apart. They ain't gonna live good. So this is something I just started doing this year, actually, and it's worked really nicely. So well, here's a rundown on how my system works. There's 3 different ways to catch crabs here in Maryland commercially. The way I do it is by crab potting, which means instead of a line with baits on it, we have a line with pots on it. And so on each end, we have a tall buoy with a flag called a hawk, and then there's 25 pots connected to each line. Put the line in this thing called the winder. It's a hydraulic powered line hauler, very similar to the ones they use in Maine for lobsters. We pull it up, and each pot has a lead with a clip. We call this snap gear. Every 75 feet, there's a loop on this main line, and that's where the pots connect to. So when they come up, I unhook them, put the lead on top, open the door, flip it up, open the old bait, open the bait door, the old bait falls out, and then the pot goes to AJ, where AJ shakes the crabs out of the pot. He's gonna put bait, fresh bait, into the pot, and then the pot is gonna go into this tank, which is just full of hot water. The hot water is to kill all the barnacle growth, all the algae growth, all that kind of stuff, so we do not end up with another major disaster like we did a couple videos ago where all the pots got so dirty we couldn't even fish them. We had to basically start crabbing over. While they're doing that, I'm on the winder. I'm gonna put the boat in gear, and we are running the boat down the line and picking the line up as we go. The loops that the snap gear came off of get stacked on this pole on the barrel in order, and all our line is going into this barrel as well. So there's no downtime. As he's shaking that pot, I'm on the hauler getting the next pot up. And check this out, we did this little experiment the last video where we had a pallet of, or flat of bait. It was actually full-on shrimp, like the tails. So what we standard use for bait is just the head of the shrimp, because we buy those in flats, and it's a byproduct of the shrimp that you eat. You buy at the grocery store, to the restaurant. But the other day we actually got a whole flat of shrimp, like the meat, the tails, and we were trying to see if it caught any different. I actually don't think it catches as well as the heads. I think the heads catch better. I think because they got, I don't know, juice in them or whatever it is, all the fat, everything that the crabs are after. It's kind of like how bears, when they go to eat salmon, all they want to eat is the skin and the fat and the organs. That's what has the nutrients in it. And all we want to eat is the flesh, which basically has like not near as much nutrients in it. I feel like it's the same thing with the crab. Well, I'm doing this and he's doing that. Greg is over here and he is pulling the pots out of the water and stacking them up 3 high and pushing them to the back of the boat. So we basically have like an assembly line. And this time that it takes me to get the pot off, AJ to shake and bait it, right about the right amount of time for that pot to get clean in the hot water. And the idea is that there's no downtime, so we can be as efficient as possible, because we fish 500 pots a day. So we got 500 of these traps We'll fish 20 rows of 25 every single day. And we can fish them pretty quick. We can fish them up to 100 pots an hour, which is probably the rate we're gonna go at today. Basically, the boat never stops moving. So the whole time I'm on here, we're moving forward, and then when we go to turn around, we're just moving back onto the next row. And while we're doing this, Nate is back there sorting the crabs by quality and size. So traditionally in Maryland, crabs are sorted into 3 different categories. You have ones, twos, and females. So if you are to sell crabs directly to the buyer, which is how most crabbers do it, which is what I did for the first 7 years of my crabbing career, the wholesale buys number 1s and number 2s. And so number 2s are gonna be your smaller crabs, 5 or 5 1/4 minimum size, whatever, depending on what time of year it is, to a 5 3/4 inch crab in the upper bay. There's no like standard size, like legally standard size for a 1 and a 2. It depends on whatever your buyer wants you to call them at. So in the upper bay, like when I was selling, the standard call was a 5 to 5 3/4 inch crab was a number 2, and then a 5 3/4 inch crab, and anything bigger than that is a number 1. Number 1s are the money crabs. That's what we're really after, because they're just worth like 2 or 3 times more than a number 2. Everybody wants a bigger crab up here for the basket market, which is what we have more of being closer to the city. A number 2 is a smaller crab, a number 1 is a bigger crab, and the third call is a female, which in the state of Maryland, as long as you have the license to catch and keep females, which I do, it just has to be a mature female, which means its apron has had to change from that pyramid shape to a dome shape. And there's no size limit, but that is because when a female crab sheds from an immature to a mature crab, it will never shed again. She'll never get any bigger. Right here is a mature female crab. See how her apron is this dome shape? And she'd have been a really nice, pretty, good size, large female crab. She's a little soft, so she's a little squeezy up under there. And females need to be really hard to be full of meat. So that brings us to our next thing, is to how crabs are graded. So not only are we grading crabs by the size, we are also grading crabs by the quality. Number 1 and number 2 in the state of Maryland refers to the size of the shell. When we measure crabs, we're measuring them across the top of the shell or the carapace from point to point. The second thing, the quality, is really the most important thing. And you're gonna have light crabs and you're gonna have hard crabs, is how we categorize them. A hard crab is gonna be your standard 1 or 2, which means the shell is hard, which means that that crab is gonna be really full of meat, so it's gonna bring a better price at market. So the way we're testing for quality is we're squeezing up underneath the shell. So up under these points right here, okay? We're just gonna take our thumb and press up under there and see how he's really firm. We're not squeezing the crap out of him. We're not trying to kill him or anything, but we're just giving him a firm little squeeze. His shell is nice and hard. He's got some black mud marks and whatever on his bottom. If we squeeze him by the back of the shell here, right here, he's also hard, like right there in the small of his back. He's really nice hard crabs. That is a beautiful, probably 6 1/4 inch number 1 right there, one of my largest. I call them a little different because I sell direct to customer. We'll get into that later, but that's really what we're after. I'll find you a light crab. So this crab is a light. So this is a lesser quality crab. It also happens to be smaller, but mostly what we're focused on is the quality right now. You'll notice how this crab is a lot lighter in color. We have hard crab and a light crab, right? This is the hard crab. We can see how he's a little darker. He's got like black in between these little points. He's got some rust on his belly there. He's got dark hair up under his armpits, and he's hard if we squeeze him. This crab is a light crab. You're not gonna notice any of that black coloring. You flip him over, he's almost like translucent, like white. You see? Very pretty. But if we squeeze up underneath it here, see how his shell flexes like that? And if you squeeze him in the small of the back, you see how his shell creases? This is a lesser quality crab, which means this crab just recently shed its shell and grew a new shell and has not yet filled that new shell out with all the meat. So there's a lot of water inside this crab and not a lot of meat, which makes it an excellent crab for picking. Some people like to eat these crabs because they're very easy to pick and they're also cheap. If I do keep them, I sell them for $1 a piece typically. They're just not the quality that a lot of people want. They're not gonna have that really nice yellow mustard and that fat reserve and that flavor that people are after when they buy Maryland crabs. Typically, we will throw these crabs back. I'll keep a few. It's totally legal to keep these crabs. I like to throw them back because this crab is worth a quarter of what this crab is worth, and it's because of the quality. And in order to get this crab to be better quality and worth more, we got to throw him back. And that way he will get harder, eat, fill his shell out, and then if I catch him in 2-3 more weeks, he's going to be worth 2 or 3 times more than what he is right now. You can only kill a crab once, right? And you may as well try to get them, well, they're worth the most amount of money. When we have all the 25 pots in the boat stacked on the deck, we are going to set the pots back, which is harder than hauling in practice, but to watch, it's like, this looks like the same kind of thing. So basically, I'm gonna throw this south end hawk. AJ is gonna pull these loops off one at a time, clip the snap gear back on, and then set the pots as we go. After you do it a couple times, it's pretty easy. You just kind of got to get in the rhythm of it. Also, I have the best shaker this side of the Mississippi, which helps. Right, AJ? Right. So basically, Greg is just undoing what he just did. He's setting the pots over here, but you'll notice that every pot is set up the same. So every pot has a lead in the same spot on the same corner. And that's on purpose. That's so that we can set back faster. And like the whole point of this system is that it's pretty dummy proof. Meant to be able to run this system on autopilot. So when we set back, we don't want the pots too tight, and we also don't want them too loose, because too tight, when the pots go down, they'll flip over, right? But too loose, if you have too much tide, or they're also gonna roll over on the bottom. So you want the tension just right. So basically we're looking for just a little loop of slack. Watch right here. See that little loop of slack go over? That's what we're looking for. It also depends on which way the tide's running, but you'll also notice that all these crab pots have a rebar square on the bottom. We call that an iron, and that's the thing that helps keep the pot going down straight, because if it lands on its side, you don't catch anything but fish. You want that pot to land straight. Look at that spot. And that's what we do 20 times a day. This is a call stick. We measure it by putting point. You swing it over, whatever it lands on, that's what size it is. So we go small, medium, large, XL. This line and down is a small. Right now, because of the time of the year, this line is a very small margin for smalls. Here and under is not legal. These lines, medium, this line to this line, large, this line to this line, XL. Anything bigger than that is a jumbo. This is a nice light crab, another light crab. He's an XL. Nice hard crab, he's a large. So the crates, this is our small, medium, large. Large, 1 zip tie. Mediums, 2 zip ties. Smalls, we have 3 zip ties. XLs, we have 1 zip tie wrapped around another one. Right here, this is females. We keep them in a smaller crate. Peelers, that's crabs that are about to shed into a soft crab. We typically just put them all in there and then Luke sizes them out at the crab stand. Like this guy, he's just not legal, so we throw him over. This is a light female, so we can't keep him. So these are large, so we're gonna put them in the basket with 1 zip tie. It's another large. Give me a nice medium.
So what I'm doing here, I'm stacking pots. What stacking pots is basically the most similar to the grunt work of the boat. I take them from AJ after he shakes them all and puts new bait in them, stack them up 3 high, and I bring them all the way to the back of the boat and fill it up from here. And I make sure all the leads face the right way. I pick up stuff like that.
Greg's getting his degree in rocket surgery or whatever, but he's getting his master's at the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, minoring and stacking pots too. So once I slide them to the back there, if I'm feeling generous, I might get the bait scoop ready for AJ. That's only if he's being a good boy, but he is normally.
Check this out. These crabs are wrestling. See that?
Yeah.
They're doing their thing. That's how you know the big crabs. There's no big crabs around, because see these little males? They're the ones that are getting all the action. All the big crabs, really big crabs, the dominant males, they've moved on or been clawed up or jammed back up in the creeks. That's the short king's time to shine, man. Yeah. I'm telling you. Taking care of our crabs for the next 2 years right there.
So basically that's all stacking is. There's some times like that too, where you get stuck and you might mess things up, but you just gotta keep going. So now this is the fun part of stacking job. This is the part where if you mess up, the whole boat gets mad at you and says really mean things to you. It makes you sad, because if you mess up, we all gotta redo what we just did. So every single time I put all these pots up here, I gotta make the leads face the right way, and then I also gotta make them right, nice and easy for AJ to grab, because he's gotta go quick too. And I'm pretty much just working this whole way, all the way back. And it gets real hard when these are all gone too, and then I gotta run all the way to the back, and I hit my head on that thing so many times too. That doesn't matter though, there's not much up here, so I can afford to bang it around. But that's essentially the fun part of this. This is what gets your heart rate up. Woo. Sometimes you might drop some bait by accident too, but if that happens, you just gotta keep going. Like I said, there's not a lot of time to fix things on this part of the job. You just gotta go, you just gotta go, you know? Where's the lead? Oh, it's right in front of me. Ow. About the millionth time that's happened today. It's gonna happen a million more times when I hit my head. And now we're getting to the harder parts here. I gotta be on time. A lot of times when you're doing this, right before you do your little run back, it helps to let a pot sit right here for AJ, so that way he can grab that while you're trying to do your job. Also don't get stuck there. We're almost done. Find the lead, that's what always really tough pot. Last one right here, this is the hardest one. See if I can make it back in time. Oh, it's getting slippery. Boom, every time.
I am.
That's easy work. And then we gotta make sure, all right, there's a pot in the dipper, so we're gonna make sure to hand that one to AJ. And that's the end of the row. Coming up. Make sure they know it's the last one too. And that's how to stack a row.
Now we got the best job on the boat.
Open the pot, you can film for flames.
Shake the crabs. Bait the pot.
Although in my experience, most shakers are.
Flip it over, close it, put it in the tank. You can work faster, me or you.
It's always a race. AJ and I are racing each other all day. Because I set the pace with hauling. Well, you can dang, look at that pot. Look at them crabs in there. That's a pot of crabs right there, boy. Son of a gun. They own that fish. Pretty stuff. There's a ton of crabs around right now. There's just not, they're all cookie cutter crabs is what we call them. Basically, there's a ton of crabs that are like 5.5-inch 2s and 6-inch 1s. And they're nice. They're really pretty, full, heavy crabs. There's no really big crabs. Like at the crab stand, I make all my, I make good chunks of my money on extra large and jumbo crabs because they bring so much more money just because of the size and the quality. But right now, there's like no extra larges and no jumbo. But there's a ton of really, really pretty ones, really pretty larges, which is totally fine. This is the time of year people want to start doing crab feasts and 5 bushels anyway. The shaker is sort of like your right-hand guy, typically. Usually it's somebody that's worked on the boat the longest, not always, but it's kind of your first man, I guess they would call it, like up in Maine. And the way you get that position is usually by just showing up for a couple years consistently. AJ has been helping me for a while. And this year we went crabbing, the other guys moved on, went and did something else. And AJ was the one left, so he's got the most experience. He's been helping me for quite a while, and now he's a shaker.
Best crab you ever caught.
Yep. People want to talk a lot of crap about the next generation and whatever else, and I get it. There's plenty of reasons, but you got to give it to these guys. They're all pretty young, and they work hard, and they keep showing up, which is half the job. Without them, I can't crab, and without me, they don't have a job. It works out.
Gotta give props on Greg for being the best pot stacker in Maryland.
He's at least the best pot stacker on this boat.
Them long arms.
Yeah, it actually does help to have tall stackers are actually a lot better. Have longer arms. As you can see on my little boat, the Southern Girl here, we use every single inch of this boat, even just to have a full stack of pots on here, which is something that makes me really excited to finish the Desperado out. I cannot wait. Last pot in the water.
The only time Greg ever messed up was when I said he did a good job.
That's how it always goes.
They were hyping you up, Greg. You messed it up.
Crab pots, we actually have very little bycatch. That's a little rockfish right there. We catch them occasionally. It's a Maryland state fish. We call them rockfish. And apparently everybody else in the country calls them something else. Stripers or striped bass. In Maryland, I don't know, we always call them rockfish, and it's good eating fish. That's a real little one. They're controversial fish here at the moment, just because it's like the biggest sport fish that we have in the state. There's a lot of regulations surrounding them and debate on why there's not so many as there used to be. And from my perspective, at least, the bay is changing ecologically really quickly. The animals are trying to play catch up and adapt, trying to adapt to the ecological change. We have a lot warmer water in the bay than we ever really used to, and we have a lot milder winters. You know, the bay doesn't ever freeze over anymore, and a lot of times in the winter it just doesn't even get all that cold. You know, rockfish is a colder water fish, especially for spawning. Sometimes the surface temperature of the water will be 98 degrees right out here. That is hot, hot. That is way too hot for rockfish. But they're also starting to see way more rockfish in areas and states up north that they never used to. Not in any numbers, at least. Same thing, like we have a few less LY and whatever else that we used to, but in places like Maine, up where my buddy Jacob is, they have more than they have ever had. I mean, he said when he was a kid, it used to be a novelty to see one, and now they have a full season to go purse seine them, like catch them and use them for bait. Things are just changing here, especially on the East Coast, ecologically and quickly. And I think all the animals are just trying to play catch up and adapt. Typically, nature takes a long time to change and adapt. There's a lot more human impact on the natural world than there ever used to be. I think it will bounce back. I think that things ebb and flow. I think that we have years where numbers of certain fish are really down, or we don't even see certain fish, and then we have years where we have nothing but that fish that we never saw for the last 5 years. Crabs are also super resilient and have the ability to bounce back in population quickly because their lifespan is so short, their life cycle is so short compared to something like a lobster. You know, a lobster can live up to 100 years, and the average lobster that you catch and eat is a few years old. Unlike a crab, where the average crab that you eat, catch and eat, is only a year old or 2 years old. All right, so here we have the next generation of crabs. This is a sponge crab, and she's got eggs on her belly there. So these are all little teeny tiny baby blue crabs, really tiny little sponge right there. I'm honestly surprised that we've seen them with a sponge because it's not near as salty in the Upper Bay rock crab as it has been the past couple years. So this is only like the second or third one I've seen this year. Other years when the salinity is really high, we'll see these all the time. These are illegal for us to keep here in Maryland, although in Virginia, they just legalized winter crab dredging, so I'm sure they're going to be catching a lot of sponge crabs. A female crab, when she has a sponge, like a brood of crabs, she's going to have anywhere from 1 to 8 million eggs on her bottom there. This is a really small sponge. I have no idea how many eggs that is. I would guess on the lower side of 1 to 2 million. Who knows? A lot of times they have a sponge on them the size of like an orange or like a softball if it's a little bit of a bigger crab. The survival rate in the wild is about 1 in 1 million eggs. The craziest thing is in Virginia, they're allowed to keep sponge crabs, and they're worth like half as much as a bushel of regular females because they just tear the sponges off, steam the crab, and then pick the crab for meat. It doesn't really make any sense as to why they would let them keep sponge crabs. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not my circus, not my monkeys. I don't know. Maryland, though, you get caught with keeping one of these, you can lose your license. But you go 200 miles or 100 miles south into Virginia, and you're allowed to keep these and sell them for $15 a bushel, which doesn't make any sense at all. But kind of neat. She's an expecting mother. And the darker the sponge is, the closer the eggs are to coming off of her and being crab larvae. And then the larva is going to go through about, I believe, 15 different stages before it actually starts to look anything like an actual crab. And then once they start to look like a crab, they shed very, very frequently, try to grow into a size where they're not going to get eaten by everything in the bay. We don't see these super often. You go further south, you see them a lot. New sponge is going to be bright, bright orange like the tips of the claws. And as the sponge stays on the crab for longer and longer, it's going to get darker color as it gets closer to releasing the eggs. So we fished 14 rows out of 20 so far. They are nice crabs, which are sellable, very nice sellable, straight cookie cutter, large crabs. They're awesome. I do wish I had a few more really big crabs. There's just not a lot around right now. It is looking like we're gonna make all these orders though. Probably also gonna pick up a couple crabs from the local guys here, Randy and them that trout line. Hopefully they're gonna get me a couple bigger crabs. That's another method of crabbing where you have a long baited line, and instead of pots, you just have the bait tied right to the line, and then you drive the boat along the line with an arm that hangs over the side. You put the line in the arm, and then when you drive along, it picks the line up with the crabs still attached, and then you're gonna dip the crabs up with a net and dump them in the boat and then sort them. A really popular way of crabbing if you're by yourself or you live on like the lower shore where there's a lot of areas you're not allowed to crab pot. It's not as common up here in the upper bay. Crab potting's a little more common, I would say, for the commercial guys. It's a lot of recreational trout liners though. The trout liners though, the advantage is that you can crab in areas where I'm not allowed to crab pot. And a lot of times when the big crabs disappear in the areas I can crab pot, it's because they go into areas like rivers and creeks to hide or to mate or to do whatever or to feed, and then that's when the guys that trout line can get at them. So a lot of guys will have two boats where they can trout line on one boat, a small skiff, low overhead. You can go by yourself, run an outboard. You're spending $100 a day to go to work instead of $1,000 a day like I am here to go crab potting. But it's nice because you can always have some big crabs, and that's really where you're going to make your money in the market. You got to move all the rest of the crabs to be able to keep the operation going, but in order to make kind of your money as the guy selling them, you really need those big, nice, heavy crabs that you can make a wider margin on. We got 6 more rows to fish. It is starting to blow a little bit. It's a northwest wind, and on the south side of the point here, we were pretty protected. On the north side, we're going to be a little more exposed, and I can feel the tide starting to switch a little bit, and the tide is now going to be what we call bucking the wind. So the tide's going one way, the wind's coming the other. And like right now we have an incoming tide, a flood tide with a northwest wind which is blowing down the bay. The water's going this way, the wind's coming this way, and what that does is it stands the waves up a lot of times, which just makes it a little taller swell to work in. As long as we can keep the boat kind of quartered into the swell, we'll be okay. Even bow in is going to be all right. We only got 6 rows. We've been making great time. Guys are working hard today. The nice cool weather is also helping us keep things moving, because when it gets really hot, it's when this gets really miserable. But this is a super weird time of year for market, because like I said, we have a lot of these cookie cutter crabs and not a lot of really big crabs on the market. And the crabs that we're catching now that are our 5.5 and 6-inch crabs are like our money crabs for this year. So these are the crabs that we've been catching all year. Basically, we've been picking them up and putting them down. We've been having to watch them grow up, is what we say. In the very beginning of the season, these crabs were all our, little 3.5, 4-inch peeler males. So when we had that first run of male peeler crabs early in the season, like mid to late April and early May, those are these crabs now, because they've shed that first time, and then we had a lot of little crabs on the market, and then they've shed again a couple weeks ago. That's when we saw them, and now they've run out of the rivers and they're in the bayfront. So now we're catching them, but they're big enough that they get, woo! That was a big wave. They stay in the pots. So now we're seeing all these crabs. Problem is, when I'm catching a lot of crabs, everybody's catching a lot of crabs, which means there's a lot of crabs on the market, if that makes sense. The more commodity you have on the market, the less that commodity's worth. The other issue that we have is that now that there's crabs around and pretty much everybody's catching crabs, market-sized crabs everywhere in the bay, a lot of guys that don't usually crab, a lot of part-time crabbers or weekend crabbers are going crabbing because now it's easy to catch crabs. They don't want to go travel to find them or do whatever. They want to catch them in their own backyard. And so they're going out and catching all these crabs and putting all these other crabs into the market, hurting a lot of the guys that have been catching crabs all year. So there's a lot of full-time guys like me and CJ and a lot of other guys I know. We crab beginning to end. And we crab when the market's good and we crab when the market's bad. But now everybody's, you know, we didn't have a lot of crabs in the spring, right? Nobody did. The price was up. So we basically had to claw ourselves, crawl through the spring with very scarce crabs, and then now that we have a lot of crabs to catch and sell, they're not worth near as much, and part of that is because there's so many more in the market, not only because everybody that was crabbing since spring is catching a lot of crabs, but also we have a whole bunch of other crabbers that weren't crabbing at all until right now that are also crabbing, because now it's easy to catch crabs. The problem is you get a lot of these guys that are only doing it on the weekends, they're doing it for fun, whatever, and they're selling crabs basically for way under market value. So not only is the market flooded, but the price of the product is also going down because guys are trying to unload crabs because crab houses aren't buying crabs. People want cheaper crabs, which is okay, I guess, but you're also devaluing the product. But a lot of these guys, it's not even a thing for them. They don't care. They just want to go out and catch crabs and make a couple dollars, but it does have an effect on the guys that do it full time. The market's in an interesting spot, and it's also right when summer is ending and kids are going back to school, so our market already falls off. It's a tough time, and it's kind of this crazy thing where we're like, man, we're finally catching crabs, but it's like, dang, they're not really worth much. Because only half of crabbing is actually catching crabs. The other half, and arguably harder part of crabbing, is selling crabs and getting good money for crabs, which has kind of led me to the position I'm in now, where moving forward in the industry with the barrier to entry and all this kind of stuff, it's very important to be able to get top dollar for everything that comes over your rail. You already paid to catch it, you got to get paid the best for it, you know? So that's why I moved to selling my own crabs direct to customer. It's also why I do social media. You know, I started social media to advertise my crabs and build a market for my crabs. One thing leads to the other, and now social media is a huge part of my life. Kind of got me having an entire identity crisis because it's such a big part of my life now, and it's so all-consuming, and I've been working so hard to build this crabbing business from nothing for the last 10 years. And now it's finally really taking off. I'm really starting to see what I've been wanting to see for all the things I dreamed of for those 10 years. Selling crabs direct to customer, being able to fish a big rig, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm now in a position where all that takes so much of my time that I feel like I'm falling short on the crabbing end. So I'm really having a hard time here lately, trying to figure out how to make it work. I feel like a fraud because I'm not crabbing, I'm not going as hard at crabbing as I used to. Part of the product that I sell now is the story of catching the crabs, which is amazing. I mean, it's awesome. It's allowed me to get to where I want to be, but it's also like counterintuitive to the actual crabbing. So I don't know. It's my policy with you guys has always just been straight honesty and telling you what's going on and what's on my mind. So that's kind of part of where I'm at right now with my business, but I'm figuring it out, trying to figure out how to make it work and how to move forward from here and how to still crab, because what I want to do is crab. I love to crab. I truly do. Making videos is awesome, but it's not what I really love to do. It is, but it's not what I've been working towards for the last 10 years. I'm excited that you guys are here for it though, and I'm excited to see where it goes as well. I know a lot of you guys are too, so. All right, we got 6 more rows to fish. This is kind of like my favorite fish, and I don't know if you can hear that. It's called a croaker because it makes noise. It's pretty neat. I don't know why they make noise. They're in the drum family. Drum also make noise, but I grew up catching these things down, oh, he talking. Trap phone calling, man, I'm telling you. They call them hardheads or croakers. Pretty cool fish, great eating fish. We used to see them a lot here. We don't see them so much anymore, so it's kind of a treat to see them. Even when I was in high school a decade ago, that's crazy to say, but we used to catch them right out here where we're at right now. Big ones too, and we don't catch them that much anymore, but I don't know. It's nice to see them coming back. Well, we made it through the day. It was actually quite pleasant because it wasn't 10 million degrees.
It wasn't bad.
No, not too bad at all. Cleaning up the boat, headed in. I think we're gonna make our orders, most of them at least. We're gonna have to definitely hustle and go one more day. We did not catch enough to make everything already. We have one more day like this, plus, you know, some if Randy catches them or something, we'll be okay. I wish I could have got it on lock today because weather's been gnarly, and I'm hoping we have enough weather to go again Friday to finish this stuff up. The other method of commercial crabbing that I was talking about earlier is single pots. We call them singles or single corks or whatever, where every crab pot, instead of being attached to a line like mine, they are all on individual buoys, kind of like how we do Ken and Kent, the short form series where we try different baits that you guys suggest. Where we are in the upper bay, it is a little tricky to fish those because there's so much boat traffic that people tend to run them over all the time or steal them. I used to fish like 800 single floats, and I would lose like 200 a year for people taking them or people running them over or whatever else. That's why I switched to underwater lines, really. So that other method of crabbing I was talking about called trout lining is what my neighbor Randy does. He's over here doing it, so I'm gonna pull up and show you just a little bit of how it's done. Randy is running his line, so he has a thing, he's dipping a crab, just like that, you see? So he drives down that line, those little baits come up, and as the crabs come up, he dips them off the line, puts them in the box, and then goes through them. A lot lower lift way of catching crabs, that's for sure. Requires a lot less equipment, a lot lower overhead, and you can do it by yourself pretty efficiently. It's how I started crabbing. It's how most people start crabbing, actually. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of days I wish I stayed doing that. There's some guys that make good livings doing that. So we had a lot of crabs this weekend. Quite a few, for me at least. I mean, for a guy that sells them live by the dozen, I mean, I caught like 60 bushel of males this week because there's a 15 bushel limit, so we could only keep 15 a day, or else I would have had a few more. And catching 15 bushel of males, like this time of year, really ain't that big a deal. Everybody's got crabs. There's a lot on the market. But I have concerns because I always have concerns. I'm a very anxious person. But I also have concerns because everybody around me is dropping prices off the face of the freaking earth. And next weekend is Labor Day, I guess. So it's our last holiday of the year. And if you cut prices, you can't go back up. It's just not really what you want to do. Everybody got nervous and cut prices like last week on the market. So now, and I held my prices the same. And I'm running a sale on mediums to try to move a few, but I'm trying to hold my price until next weekend because once you go down, you can't go back up. And if you don't make your money before kids go back to school, you're kind of screwed. So this is the last weekend today that we have before kids go back. They go back this coming week. And then after that, you have Labor Day, which is our last big crab holiday of the year. I've been working hard to keep my prices good until next weekend, and then we can start dropping prices down. I am trusting this week it will work out. My prices will hold. People will show up. We will move the crabs. We will make money, keep everybody employed, keep everybody paid, and we will make out well in the last 2 weeks of the summer. I mean, trust me, I'm relieved to finally be catching a bunch of crabs. It just also adds the stress of like, we're only open 8 hours a week. If we can move 60 bushel in 8 hours by the dozen, that's pretty good. And that's what I'm fixing to do this weekend. Next weekend is next weekend's problem. Next weekend is no problem because it's a holiday. And then after that, that's when you got to start getting creative. That's when you guys are going to start seeing all the ideas that I've been booking since last crab season. Marketing ideas start to come into play. So it should be a little interesting. I have some interesting ideas this year, if we even need them. We're all set up. Looks good. We got people already pulling in. We still got 38 minutes till we open. Very thankful to have really good people helping me right now, and family. I know that's not something to be taken for granted either. Not a lot of people have, a good support system. I'm very thankful for them. Are you the crab dog this weekend? What are you doing? So I'm exploring. What's up? How we looking? Everything's set up. Oh, did you already sort them by size?
I was already sorting them a little bit.
Oh,
I
man.
pulled up, so I'll let you get footage of it there and then.
Sweet. Wow, we got a lot of soft crabs. Holy cow. Beautiful, beautiful soft crabs too. All these came from my tanks, and then I got a few other ones from CJ as well. Actually, probably some of these are from CJ's too. Works out good, helps him move some when he's got too many, and obviously helps me out because I get to sell them. But we have a serious amount of crabs. Ember's probably gonna eat a couple soft crabs here. And we have a serious stack of crabs in here. Quite a few. Well, here's the seasoning too. We've been selling a lot of this stuff. You can get it online. I'll link that in the description down there. But Korean barbecue style crab seasoning. It's really good. I think it's really good, obviously, but I mean, it's definitely something different to try. We have crab seasoning, and then we also have the seafood seasoning, which has just less salt in it. It's a little finer. So get yourself some. Give it a shot. Something a little different. It was a slow start, but everybody is showing up, buying crabs. We're moving them now. We did a live stream, sold a bunch. Ember's being a good dog. I'm gonna put some of this on the on my fried shrimp here from Furnace Branch Carryout. Really good stuff. You can get this. Link that below or whatever if anybody wants to try it. It's pretty good. Once again, everything was fine. Believe it or not. I got faked out there for a minute. People kept me waiting. They kept me wondering. And they finally showed up. But the rush was very short. You know, I was nervous. I was like, wow. Usually we sell, I'm not kidding, like half of the crabs in the first hour of being open. For the whole weekend. Sometimes we sell like 2/3 of the load of crabs in the first hour. Today we sold very few in the first hour. There was people lined up waiting, but the rush was later. We got through them and then it was pretty steady all day. So we ended up moving quite a few crabs. We had sold quite a few soft crabs as well. And man, it was great. Since we sold so many soft crabs, I'm here at CJ's house and I'm picking up some more soft crabs. He's got a really nice shedding operation, I'll show you. He's got big tanks here. Only got one little one, 2 little ones. He's got a bunch of big tanks. All these crabs are shedding into salt crabs. These are all peeler crabs. CJ really has some fine construction at his house. This is really good stuff. There we have them. Look at those beautiful salt crabs. Man, those are great. There's CJ's YouTube channel. Go check him out. Soft crabs are really nice. These are a great way for watermen to make money when there's not a lot of hard crabs, but right now there's a lot of hard crabs and a lot of soft crabs on the market. Good for watermen. I'm gonna give CJ one of these call sticks. These are new call sticks I've been selling at the stand and all that kind of stuff. They're really awesome. They're like industrial grade. They're the same ones I use on the boat, and they float, which is awesome, but they're like super tough. They're made out of Teflon or something like that. I don't know what they are. Starboard, I'm not sure. But let me know. I sell these at the stand and I sell these at shows, but I don't ship them online. Drop a comment, let me know if you would like to see me ship these things. They're good stuff. 30 bucks is what I sell them for at the stand, but you buy one and you'll have it forever. I'm gonna leave CJ with one. He'll probably have it forever. Throw it on the pile. Well, you guys officially win the furthest trip from the crab stand, all the way from Ireland, or Dublin, to come to the crab stand. That's amazing. I appreciate you guys coming out.
Thanks so much.
What are you guys' names?
Alan Meg.
Megan, hi.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I hope it's all you imagined it would be and more. I appreciate it, guys.
Today, unfortunately.
It's all good. It's all good. I appreciate you guys coming out.
We will be coming back next week for crabs.
Awesome. All right, so we did not sell all the crabs this weekend. We sold a lot, considering we started with 60 bushels of just males. These crabs will either get turned into crab halves or picked for crab meat or the crab cakes that you guys can buy, or I'm gonna run some kind of sale on shipping crabs this week. And we moved 20 dozen soft crabs in the last 2 days. I had 10 dozen this morning and 10 dozen yesterday morning. Somehow, some way, we sold 20 dozen. It's pretty wild. And we sold many more than 20 dozen hard crabs. So, appreciate everybody coming out. Feels really good to stand in this refrigerated trailer. We're getting cleaned up. We got another grind week ahead of us because next week is the last holiday of the summer. And I am short-handed. I don't have any help because my help is going back to school. So AJ and I are gonna have to go figure out how to crab with just the 2 of us. And we need to get as many crabs in the boat and in the trailer as we possibly can. We're gonna need them for this holiday weekend. Because if you have not made your money before kids go back to school, you ain't gonna make it. We got some work to do and some crabs to move here. We'll see you.